Cinematic.
We've all heard that. But what does it really mean to make your video more cinematic? My name's JB, and I think I found a plugin that may help you with that. When it comes to making videos, I'm pretty much a one-man band like a lot of you guys are. I do the shooting, the editing, the sound design, and even the color grading. Matter of fact, the color grading is where I have my biggest struggles. I've tried every LUT, I've tried every program, I've tried everything, but I can't find anything that gives me quite the control I want, but still gives me the look that I'm going for. So when the team at Dehancer reached out for me to try out their plugin in DaVinci Resolve, I was all for it. Full disclosure, the team at Dehancer did give me a license to use, but this review is strictly my own opinions and they have no say whatsoever in this video. They were also kind enough to give me a 10% discount code to anyone else that wants to join. But enough about that. Let's see what Dehancer can actually do.
Okay, so here we are in DaVinci Resolve, and I will warn you ahead of time, I am a 10-year veteran of Final Cut Pro, but I am in the process of trying to move over full-time to DaVinci just because of what it can do, and the color grading aspects of it are amazing. However, in this video, I'm only going to show what Dehancer can do in DaVinci. No other tools or anything else in DaVinci, just straight Dehancer. So you can see here I've got two video clips. One is of some flowers in a field blowing in the wind, which is always nice and pretty, and another one of a really big strong guy lifting up a giant wooden pole at the Houston Highland Games. So I'm going to go into and show you basically how I do the color grading, and once again you could change this to however you want to. There's a million different ways to do it. These are just my techniques and what I use and what I don't use. So first thing, I'm going to add a serial node. In that serial node I'm going to add Dehancer, and obviously you can see it looks a little bit different, a little bit funky right off the get-go. So these are my steps. First, I'll go through and choose the camera. As you can see, when you choose a camera, excuse me, go back to here real quick. When I choose my camera, there are tons of different camera profiles. You've got DJI to Canon to Red to Sigma to Sony. I shoot mostly with Sony, and this was shot in particular on a Sony A7, or excuse me, Sony FX3. So I'm going to type that in here. And it was shot in S-Log3 S-Gamut 3 Cine. So already it looks a lot better, looks a lot richer. The next thing I'm going to usually do is go down, I'm going to turn off the grain for now. We'll add it back later, but it helps me see the picture better if I can turn that off. From there, I'm going to go to the print section, and this is what kind of emulates it if it were actually printed on film. I tend to default to the Kodak 2383. It just adds a richness to it and kind of a oomph to it that I really like. This is just to emulate if it were actually printed on that film. I don't do much here. I may adjust the color density a little bit, give a little richer colors. I may adjust the exposure somewhat in here. I'd rather adjust the exposure here than up in the input window. It just, I feel like it has a better, it comes across better. From there, I will go to choose my film. These are all the film stocks that Dehancer has, every film stock you could think of. I will be honest, I don't use most of these. I usually default to the same ones every time because they, in my opinion, look so good. The Porta 400 is one of my favorites. I also tend to use 50D, depending on if it's inside or outside, as well as a 5500T, depending on what the lighting situation is. And from here, you kind of start really fine-tuning it the way you like. When you go to your film, you can push your pole. It kind of is emulating if you let it sit in there for longer or less time to develop. At least that's what I was told. I'll also go to my expand, and here it's kind of like adjusting your blacks and whites. And there is a super cool tool that they have here that makes it super helpful. If you go all the way down to monitor and click clipping indication, can't seem to talk today, then go to your black point, white point, it'll show you exactly when you're clipping, so you know you don't go too far. You can kind of keep those colors all there. But it definitely gives you a lot more leverage to keep the visuals intact. One thing I will use a lot is in the film developer portion. I will sometimes bust up the color boost just to give a little more color to it. Sometimes it tends to flatten out quite a bit. Maybe I'll add a little contrast boost to it as well, depending on what I want it to look like. Still looking, it was a very, very yellow interior, dirt, evermore brown, and very neutral colors. So there wasn't a whole lot of color depth to it. Then I will always go down and add a vignette. it just kind of adds that finishing touch that I really enjoy to it. And that's pretty much all that I'll do, except for I'll go back to the film grain. And here I'm going to add some film grain just to give it that nice look. Although 35 at 250 is way too much for me. So I tend to either go custom, or a lot of times I'll default down to 65, ISO 50. And it's just enough grain in there to not be overpowering, but to be very, very subtle in how it looks. So this is obviously shot in slow motion, so you can kind of see, but it just gives it such a richer look. Here it is without, and here it is with. Obviously makes a big change to it. And it's really that simple and really that easy. All right, let's go to the other clip here. We're going to follow basically the same process here. We're going to start by adding a serial node. In that node, we're going to drop in Dehancer. We're going to set up our camera profile. And this camera was a Sony A7R4, which I've been finding lately has been my go-to camera for so many things. And it was shot in S-Log 3S Gamut Cine. Already looking a lot better, but it still kind of needs a lot of work to it. So we'll follow the same process again. I'll go down, I'll add my print film to it. From there, I may adjust the exposure somewhat. Maybe bring that down, bring a little more of the colors out. Maybe up the color density some, give it a little more depth to those colors. I'm going to go down and add my vignette. Then I'm going to go adjust the black-white points. Oops, so just let me drop it. And not too much. And for this one, I am going to enable and add a little color boost to it, just to give a little more life to it. Change my grain, which I forgot to. Like I said, I'm still new how to use it in this way. And there you have it. Really 2 seconds to do, and it makes a big impact. Depending on what you're looking for, you have so many variables on this as well, too. And I forgot, as usual, to change the color or change the film. We can experiment around and see what different ones look good. Let's see, that one brings a little jump to it. Like I said, you can play around with these and find out what works best for you and what look you're going for, but it gives you so much of an ability to control this. Now, some other tools I don't use a whole lot down here on the bottom. You may use them. Colorhead, if you want to adjust certain colors, you can gang them together, or you can just do certain yellow blues. I don't do a whole lot with that. Excuse me, turn it on first, probably helpful. I don't do a whole lot with that because it's just depending on what I'm looking for in the image. You can also adjust the shadows per tone, mid-tones, tone, and highlights tone, as well as preserve exposure. Film grain, we've talked about that. If you ever do want to add your own custom film grain, you can go to here, and you can see you have so much you can adjust this within the film grain. And it is, to me, the most organic looking film grain I have seen so far. But I usually just stick here. Halation, turn that on. It's going to definitely kind of look like old film where you'll see a little bit of orange, red tinge around the highlights. Yeah, it may give you that kind of good vintage look. I don't use that a whole lot though. Bloom, I use a black mist filter on all my lenses, so I don't need this as much. But if you didn't, you could use this on that and kind of take off that digital sharpening quite a bit. Film damage, don't do a whole lot with this just because you have to have a certain look you're going for. I'm just going to add those little hairs and kind of scroll through hair, scratches and that kind of stuff in there, but not really something I do a whole lot. Film breath. Once again, you can add this, and it's going to be kind of it kind of goes in and out of focus a little bit. Gate weave. It's kind of give you those little micro jitters in there throughout the video. Once again, these are things that are very particular to a certain case that I don't use much. Overscan. If you want it to look like you're trying to emulate actual film strip, you can do it here. You've got a bunch of different options here. Once again, I don't use this much because this is a very particular case scenario that you need this, and I don't need it that often. I do like the monitors usually sometimes. False colors is great for getting exposure, especially when you got people on there. And you can also generate your own LUT from this. So if I really like this look, I could generate a LUT and I could use that LUT on future projects, which makes it super, super nice. And when you're generating, you're obviously getting the best quality you can. So that being said, it's a really easy tool. It offers you an incredible amount of flexibility, and I would suggest everyone just to play around with it.
So in review, I would say that Dehancer is definitely going to be my favorite plugin moving forward. The amount of looks you can generate, the control you have, and the overall results are absolutely outstanding in my opinion. So go ahead and check it out for yourself. They offer a free trial, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks for listening.